Hello and welcome to Vantage. I'm Alyson Le Grange. Let's get started. There is no breakthrough in Washington, so the U.S. government shutdown continues. President Donald Trump is blaming the Democrats for the deadlock. Meanwhile, the world is watching closely. Any instability in the U.S. could have ripple effects globally. But what's the thinking behind Trump's brinkmanship? Has he turned chaos into winning strategy? We'll explore. Also on the show, Israel has blocked aid ships heading to Gaza. Trump is plotting long-range Ukrainian hits on Russia. Pakistan continues to hold the Asia Cup trophy hostage. And the artificial intelligence bubble continues to grow. Around 95% of companies see no returns. All of this and more lined up. But first, the headlines.
India and China agree to resume direct passenger flights by the end of this month. This is a significant step towards restoring normalcy in bilateral ties. The decision comes just weeks after Prime Minister Narendra Modi met the Chinese president on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. Flights between the two countries were suspended in early 2020 during the COVID pandemic. Afghanistan's foreign minister is expected to visit India next week, according to reports. This would be the first high-level meeting between the two sides since the Taliban returned to power in Kabul in August 2021. So far, India's engagement with the Taliban has been limited mainly to humanitarian aid and people-to-people ties. At least 2 people were killed and 3 were injured in a car and stabbing attack outside a packed synagogue in Manchester. The suspect is believed to have been shot dead by the UK police. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has condemned the attack. He left a European political summit in Denmark early to chair an emergency security meeting in London. The lower house of Brazil's Congress votes to expand income tax exemptions for the middle class, despite opposition from investors. The bill, which awaits Senate approval, would exempt about 16 million Brazilians from paying income tax, according to government estimates. And this weekend's Singapore Grand Prix has been declared an official Formula One heat hazard. It is the first time that this new rule has been invoked to help drivers stay cool. Singapore's Marina Bay Street circuit is one of the most physically demanding F1 races, where extremes of heat, humidity, and weather all play a part.
It's day 2 of the U.S. government shutdown, the first one in 7 years. It's already turning into one of the biggest political flashpoints in modern American history. The White House is warning of layoffs, and the blame game is on in full swing. Republicans are pointing fingers at Democrats. The Democrats are blaming Republicans as the deadlock continues.
The Chuck Schumer AOC wing of the Democratic Party shut down the government because they said to us, we will open the government, but only if you give billions of dollars of funding for health care for illegal aliens. That's a ridiculous proposition.
At midnight, Donald Trump and Republicans shut the federal government down because they don't want to provide health care to working class Americans.
It's a deadlock that has put the world on edge. Remember, this is only a partial shutdown. Essential workers are still reporting to duty, but they are working without pay. Non-essential staff have been sent home on unpaid leave. The impact of this shutdown may look limited and temporary, yet observers remain nervous. The shutdown is already having wider consequences. It affects the outlook for the US economy, and it shapes decisions made by global investors. There are two big reasons why. Now, number one is linked to economic data. Since the US government has shut down, some key economic data won't be released, like the monthly jobs and inflation reports. Now, what do these reports cover? It contains key numbers and data, like how many jobs were created or lost, how much prices are rising. The flow of this information has stopped since the government is witnessing a shutdown. Now, why is this significant? You see, this data is essential. It is used to make economic policies. It influences decisions of policymakers like the US Federal Reserve or the Fed, and that's the Central Bank of America. It uses this data to decide interest rates, the rate at which banks extend loans to their customers. The Fed relies on job numbers and, crucially, inflation data to make these decisions. Now, without these reports, the Fed could be flying blind. Now, that's how one expert put it. This is the impact of the shutdown on America's economic leaders. It's harder for them to figure out what's happening in the American economy. If they have less data, it may lead to less informed decisions on matters that impact everyone's lives, jobs, savings, even the cost of living. So that's the first red flag. Now, the second is linked to currency. Now, this shutdown directly impacts the US dollar because the longer the shutdown lasts, the weaker the dollar could get. That's the assessment of the MUFG Bank. Now, the MUFG Bank is one of the world's largest financial groups, and according to them, the dollar is at risk of further losses. They have issued a warning of sorts. The MUFG's assessment says that this is because if the shutdown drags on, the US Fed could slash interest rates, possibly as early as October, and again in December. And when rates fall, the return on dollar assets falls too, and that makes the dollar less attractive. The fear is even bigger this time. In the last shutdown in 2018, there was room for compromise. But this time, in his second term, President Trump has been far more aggressive with his policies. Experts fear that Trump may not be willing to compromise. He might double down instead. Already, Trump has threatened mass firings of federal workers. If that happens, the impact would be huge. Hundreds of thousands could lose their jobs, and America's growth would take a bigger hit. Markets would then price in a deeper economic slowdown and a weaker dollar. On paper, this shutdown is just a domestic budget crisis, but in reality, it has far-reaching consequences. Each day without a budget deal means more pressure on the American economy, America's central bank, and the US dollar. This shutdown shouldn't be seen in isolation. It is part of Donald Trump's brand, his brand of chaos. From outside, it may look random, it may look directionless, but the president has turned it into a strategy. Whether it's trade or media coverage or funding bills, Trump uses the same strategy: chaos. He raises the stakes to unimaginable levels. Then, when he waits for the other side to cave, take the shutdown case, the president has issued stark threats to the Democrats. He has warned them of irreversible cuts.
Do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. They're taking a risk by having a shutdown because of the shutdown, we can do things medically and other ways, including benefits. We can cut large numbers of people out. We don't want to do that, but we don't want fraud, waste, and abuse. And, we're cutting that.
Naturally, this will spook the Democrats. And Trump is hoping that will bring them to the table. The same with tariffs. Think back to his announcement on April. Trump imposed the so-called reciprocal tariffs on all countries. The rates were as high as 40 to 50%. Again, the idea was to raise the stakes. You see, the US is the biggest market in the world. Every exporter hopes to sell in America. That's how lucrative it is. And Trump capitalized on that. He raised the stakes for exporters around the world. And it worked. Most countries lined up to sign a trade deal. Also, look at media crackdowns. Trump is on a lawsuit spree against US media outlets. He sued CBS for $10 billion. He sued ABC News for $15 million. And he sued the New York Times for $15 billion. The first two ended in settlements. Trump allegedly used the pressure of broadcasting regulators, and on cue, the outlets settled. Back payments aside, the tactic is the same. Raise the stakes for media outlets that criticize him. Of course, it won't work all the time. Sometimes Trump will have to roll back or delay. That's why some experts call him Taco. Trump always chickens out. But as the last few months have shown, not always. Sometimes his strategy pays off. But here's the thing. This chaotic strategy comes at a cost, both inside America and outside. This shutdown is the perfect example of that. Trump is betting that the Democrats will cave. And looking at the past, that's likely. Hours before the deadline, the Senate voted on a spending bill. The Republican side got 55 votes. 3 Democrats actually switched sides. They voted for the bill. So Trump's high-risk game can still pay off. But like I said, at what cost? Some 750,000 government workers could be put on leave. Essential services could be slowed. Even soldiers will not be paid. Trump is willing to risk that pain for his reward. The same with tariffs. They have shaken consumer confidence in the US economy. The confidence index fell by 3.6 points in October. Why? Because Americans worry about jobs and inflation. The private sector lost 32,000 jobs last month. Several retail outlets have hiked up their prices. Yet Trump is sticking to his guns. He is betting that more deals will come, that companies will bring manufacturing to America. Outside the US, this chaos is a nightmare. It has upended long-standing supply chains and calculations. The question is, will the strategy work? In some cases, it has, but in the long run, it's unlikely. Trump has benefited from the dominance of the US economy. Countries aren't signing deals with him because they agree with him or because they think his strategy is great. They're signing deals because they need the US market. But once they diversify, once they de-risk from this dependence, then what happens? We've already seen some examples. China and India have not caved to Trump's pressure. These countries are already strategically autonomous. They don't depend on America for technology or weapons or political support. Hence, they withstood Trump's pressure. If other countries reach that stage, it could be game over. It was a month-long voyage meant to deliver aid to Gaza, yet it ended in confrontation at sea. Israeli commandos intercepted a flotilla of nearly 40 boats. They were carrying medicine, activists, and even European lawmakers to Gaza. Among those detained is Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg. Israel calls it a safe interception. Activists call it piracy, and some countries have slammed Israel's action. At the heart of it all is a question. Can Israel legally stop ships in international waters? Our next report tells you.
It started with boats. dozens of them. Some carried boxes of medicine, others carried European parliamentarians, lawyers and activists. Among them was the Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg. The flotilla, formerly called the Global Sumud Flotilla, set off from Spain a month ago. It included almost 40 boats and around 500 people on board. The goal was to break through Israel's 18-year blockade of Gaza and deliver aid directly to civilians. But before it could reach its destination, Israeli naval ships closed in.
This is the Israeli Navy. You are approaching a blockaded zone.
Commandos were seen boarding boats in international waters. Some vessels were sprayed with water cannons. One was allegedly rammed, according to some reports. Footage released by Israel's foreign ministry tells a different story. It shows Thunberg sitting on the deck, handed water and a jacket by soldiers, before being transferred to port for deportation. Israel called the operation a safe interception. Activists, however, call it an illegal act of piracy. Can Israel legally intercept a flotilla in international waters? Technically, yes, or sort of. International law allows a state to enforce a naval blockade if it makes a public declaration and enforces it consistently. Israel has argued since 2007 that its blockade of Gaza is aimed at preventing Hamas from importing weapons. But the problem is geography. The boats were intercepted some 70 nautical miles off of Gaza's coast, in international waters. Israel continues to police the area, even though it holds no jurisdiction under international law. The GSF described the interceptions as illegal. Several nations have expressed their concerns over it. South Africa calls it a violation. Turkey calls it an act of terrorism. Colombia has expelled all remaining Israeli diplomats from the country in response. But this is not the first time this has happened. In June and July, Israel has already blocked 2 attempts by activists to deliver aid by ship to Gaza.
I'm receiving briefings in terms of the interception of the Gaza flotilla. Our ambassador is in touch with the Israeli authorities, and we will be providing consular assistance to those who have been detained. It's important that they're treated properly. It's a humanitarian mission, no threat to anybody other than to highlight and also to bring humanitarian aid into the people of Gaza.
Israel continues to bomb the Gaza Strip. Tens of thousands have been told to flee Gaza City. They would be branded terrorists and terror supporters if they stayed. Schools, refugee camps and even so-called safe zones have been hit. Aid groups have suspended operations, and this comes as Donald Trump presented his Gaza peace plan. The plan offers Hamas a way out, demilitarization, amnesty, prisoner exchanges and an eventual Israeli withdrawal. But Hamas is yet to accept. So where is all of this heading? Almost 2 years in, the war is locked in a grim stalemate. Israel raises, Hamas resists, civilians starve and diplomats shuffle papers. Israel wants total Hamas capitulation. Hamas wants survival. Trump wants a peace plan on his resume. Caught in between are ordinary Gazans, trapped between airstrikes and ultimatums.
And now let's talk about Ukraine and the US. Just months ago, they seemed to be on a collision course. Trump was signaling clearly if Ukraine wanted to keep fighting Russia, it might have to do so without American support. Russia seemed to have Trump's ear. And the US president engaged in a public spat with Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky. He told him in front of the world's press, "Without us, you don't have the cards." Today, that message has changed. Trump now seems ready to give Kiev some aces. The US is set to provide Ukraine with intelligence that will help Kiev strike deep inside Russia. Fresh reports have emerged. Apparently, Trump has approved a new policy. For the first time, US agencies and the Pentagon will share targeting data, and this data will help Ukraine launch long-range missiles. And what will Ukraine's target be? Russia's energy infrastructure, the refineries, pipelines, power stations, facilities that fuel the Kremlin's war effort. The aim is to strip Moscow's revenue and to weaken its ability to sustain the war. Now, why is this move significant? The US has helped Ukraine before. It remains Kiev's biggest military backer, but this support was mostly around weapon supplies. Intelligence sharing was limited. Now, Trump seems to be changing the rules. The new intelligence means Ukraine can strike deeper targets with more precision. The US is also weighing new weapons. It is considering selling missiles like Tomahawks and Barracudas, and these can strike long-range targets. There is no final decision yet, but it appears Washington is willing to raise the stakes. With this intelligence, Ukraine can plan deep strikes, not just near the front line, but hundreds of miles inside Russia. Already, Ukraine has struck Russia's energy facilities, but this new data will make those strikes far more damaging. It may force Russia to divert air defenses and perhaps pressure its energy exports. Now, how is Russia responding to this? So far, Moscow's reaction has been restrained. The Kremlin says it has been studying the reports. European allies have welcomed the move. Countries like Germany are investing in Ukraine's defenses. They have committed $350 million, and this is to boost Ukraine's strike capacity. Europe sees three priorities: air defenses, holding the front line, and the ability to hit deep into Russia. For a smaller army like Ukraine's, taking the fight beyond the front is essential. This shift marks a big change for Trump. Since taking office in January, he tried to broker a ceasefire. He offered Putin economic incentives to end the invasion. But those talks stalled. Putin did not respond. The negotiations collapsed. Now, Trump is taking a different course. He recently posted online that Ukraine could recover all of its territory at the United Nations, but he was even more blunt.
It's not making Russia look good. It's making them look bad. No matter what happens from here on out, this was something that should have taken a matter of days, certainly less than a week. And they've been fighting for 3.5 years and killing anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 young soldiers, mostly soldiers, on both sides every single week. From 5,000 to 7,000 dead young people.
Trump is clearly changing his tone. It remains to be seen if he follows up with his words with tangible support on the battlefield for Ukraine. But either way, Trump's statements show Ukraine may have more cards to play. Most importantly, it has been a green light from America to keep striking deep inside Russian territory. For Moscow, the shift may force a rethink. For Kiev, it's a new opening. And for the world, it marks a new chapter in a war that is far from over. The Asia Cup cricket tournament is long over, but it continues to dominate the headlines, all thanks to Pakistan. Their cricket board chief, Mohsin Naqvi, is throwing tantrums. He is refusing to hand over the trophy to India. Let me repeat that. The tournament winners are being denied their trophy. Let me tell you the whole story. Pakistan faced India in the Asia Cup final on Sunday. India won the match by 5 wickets. But afterwards, there was drama. Even after 1 hour, the presentation ceremony did not start. Even when it did, India did not get the trophy. None of their players were called up to take medals. Why? Because of Mohsin Naqvi. You see, Naqvi wears many hats. He is Pakistan's Interior or Home Minister. He is Pakistan's Cricket Board Chief, and he's also President of the Asian Cricket Council. So Naqvi wanted to give the trophy to India, but the team refused. The same man had attacked India in recent months. Even during the tournament, he mocked India. He posted this picture of footballer Cristiano Ronaldo, and it's a reference to alleged Indian jet downings. So naturally, the Indian team did not want to receive their trophy from someone like that. So what did Naqvi do? He took the trophy back to his hotel room. He refused to hand it over. Then on Tuesday, a virtual ACC meeting was held, and again, no luck. Naqvi refused to back down. So, in response, the Indian representatives walked out. They registered their protest against Naqvi. Then on Wednesday, he posted this message. As ACC president, I was ready to hand over the trophy that very day, and I am still ready now. If they truly want it, they are welcome to come to the ACC office and collect it from me, unquote. Now, all of this grandstanding for what? To hide Pakistan's failures. They lost 3 times to India in the Asia Cup, so Mohsin Naqvi is under pressure. The former Prime Minister Imran Khan has slammed him. He says that Naqvi is ruining Pakistani cricket like Asim Munir is ruining the country. The former cricketer Shahid Afridi has also attacked him. He is asking Naqvi to resign as the board chief. So even Pakistanis are unhappy with what Naqvi is doing, which brings us to the big question. What should happen next? Let's look at this from an objective lens. India won the tournament fair and square, so only Team India can be awarded the trophy. No other team can step in and receive the award. But look at the other side. Anyone could hand the trophy to Team India. Doesn't have to be Naqvi. Let me take you back to 2022. Sri Lanka won the Asia Cup that year, and back then India's Jay Shah was the ACC chief. But he did not present the trophy to the Sri Lankan team. It was presented by the Sri Lankan board chief. So this isn't some unprecedented situation. Other officials can present the trophy to India. The only roadblock is Pakistan's ego. You can't just hold a trophy hostage. It belongs to the rightful winners of the Asia Cup, and that's Team India. If Pakistan want the trophy so badly, they should try winning sometimes. Tensions are boiling over in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Thousands of locals have taken to the streets. They are demanding changes Islamabad has ignored for years. But the protests have been met with brutal force, tear gas, water cannons and deadly violence. 12 people were killed in the protests. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has finally broken his silence. He has called for restraint. The Pakistan Prime Minister promises a fair investigation. Our next report brings you the details.
Pakistan-occupied Kashmir has erupted into protest. Thousands of locals have poured into the streets of Muzaffarabad, Rawalkot, Mirpur and Neelam. They are demanding changes that Islamabad has ignored for years. The protests were organised by the Jammu Kashmir Joint Awami Action Committee, JKJAAC. It is a local political group which has accused Islamabad of hijacking POK's political and economic system. Some of their demands include remove reserved seats for refugees, roll back privileges given to political elites. At the heart of the protests is anger over Pakistan's leadership hijacking POK's political system. The 53-member POK Assembly includes 12 seats reserved for refugees. Locals claim these seats are often filled by Islamabad-appointed proxies that undermine the voice of the permanent residents. However, in Pakistan, any challenge to Islamabad's authority comes with a heavy price. The response from the authorities was brutal. Riot police and paramilitary forces fired water cannons and tear gas at demonstrators. At least 12 civilians were killed. Dozens more have been injured. Entire cities were shut down. Shops, schools, public transport, everything was affected. For Islamabad, this is a nightmare scenario. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif finally broke his silence. He expressed deep concern over the violence. He has expanded the negotiation committee to find a solution. The committee now includes federal ministers, former POK officials, and other high-level representatives. Sharif also called for restraint. The question, however, is whether this intervention will actually help, or if it's just another attempt to patch over a structural failure. Because in POK, the anger runs deeper than a list of demands. And it's not just this. Pakistan's leadership is struggling on multiple fronts. There is separatism in Balochistan. There's the persistent threat of terror groups like the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. The economy is teetering on the edge. But when things go wrong, Pakistan has a predictable playbook. Blame India. Whether it's a terror attack, political unrest, or economic failure, the answer is often the same. India is conspiring. It's a convenient distraction from internal failures. India, however, is not silent. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh recently addressed the nation after performing Shastra Puja at Bhuj military station in Gujarat. His message to Islamabad was unmistakable. Any misadventure on the Sur Creek sector or attempts to provoke India will be met with decisive action, an action strong enough to change both history and geography.
अगर सर क्रीक इलाके में पाकिस्तान की ओर से कोई भी हिमाकत की गई तो उसे ऐसा करारा जवाब मिलेगा कि इतिहास और भूगोल दोनों बदल जाएंगे मेरे साथियों। और 1965 की जंग में भारत की सेना ने लाहौर तक पहुंचने का सामर्थ्य भी दिखाया। आज 2025 में पाकिस्तान को याद रखना चाहिए कि कराची का एक रास्ता क्रीक से ही होकर गुजरता है।
Rajnath Singh also highlighted India's military readiness, citing Operation Sindoor. The Defence Minister's words were clear. India knows Pakistan's weaknesses. Internal chaos in Pakistan cannot be allowed to spill over into India. And New Delhi is prepared to respond swiftly and effectively to any threats from across the border.
Our next story starts with a paradox. For the last 2 years, CEOs have been saying the same thing. Artificial intelligence will transform our business. And yet, a new MIT study has poured cold water over this claim. This is what the study says. 95% of companies investing in AI are seeing exactly zero return. 95% of companies are pouring $30 to $40 billion in Gen AI pilots. Yet, most firms have a little to show. The problem isn't infrastructure, regulation, or even talent. It is something far more mundane. The problem is learning. Most AI pilots look impressive on launch day, but they usually collapse in the wild. Why? Because they cannot adapt. 60% of companies explore tools like ChatGPT or Copilot. 20% make it to pilot stage. Only 5% reach production. And that 5%, they are the rare cases that end up useful. Everyone else is stuck in demo. Think of it like buying a treadmill in January. It looks amazing and life-changing then, but 2 weeks later, it's gathering dust. The MIT study calls it the enterprise paradox. Large firms run the most pilots, but they actually struggle the most to scale them. There's a lot of bureaucracy and compliance hurdles, and there's also resistance from middle management. All of these pile up, and they may impact the development of AI tools. In this case, smaller players actually move faster. So bigger companies are losing out. But there are some using AI to their advantage. Case in point, Meta. It is now using AI to figure out what you want to buy and sell it to you. The company already makes $46.5 billion every quarter from ads. With this new move, every chat with AI is a direct pipeline into the ad machine. But here's where things get messy. Millions of users treat AI chatbots like therapists. They confess relationship woes, financial worries, even personal struggles. Meta insists it won't target ads based on religion, politics, health, or sexuality. They have given an example. Say a user is talking to the chatbot about hiking. Then the AI bot will ask them if they are interested in it. If they are, it will show them more hiking-related content. But what about the gray areas? If you tell Meta AI you're interested or you're stressed about your job, do you get productivity tool ads? If you talk about your dog's health, do you get premium pet food promos? So the risk isn't just privacy, it's the blurring line. Will AI just be a helpful companion, or will it be an aggressive salesman? And it is not Meta alone. OpenAI has launched the ability for users to buy select items directly through its own chatbot. So people can directly hit checkout. OpenAI is not currently an ads-based business. So where does all of this leave us? On one hand, billions of dollars are being poured into AI pilots, those that never escape the demo room. On the other, the few companies that do figure it out are using AI for sales. They are using it to sell you shoes or to nudge you into checkout. This is the paradox. AI is either an expensive toy or a relentless cash register. There's very little in between, and that gap raises the biggest question of all. Are we witnessing a temporary stumble, a learning curve, or are we watching the makings of the next dot-com bubble, where hype runs ahead of reality and only a few giants cash out? Whatever it is, one thing is clear. Artificial intelligence may yet transform business, but it may transform it in ways that feel less like science fiction and more like marketing. And now we turn to rare earth minerals. Most people have never seen them, but modern life cannot function without them. From smartphones to missiles, they are everywhere. And right now, control over these elements is sparking a global race. China dominates the supply chain, and that has left other governments scrambling. Malaysia is negotiating a joint project with China. Britain is moving toward a deal with Greenland, and the US is investing heavily in its own supply chain. So, is this the beginning of a new gold rush? Our next report explains.
A new global race is underway. Not for oil, not for gold, but for rare earth elements. 17 metals hidden in plain sight. They sit inside every phone, power electric vehicles, and guide missiles as well as fighter jets. They even form the backbone of clean energy. From wind turbines to advanced batteries, all depend on them. That is why governments call them strategic. Because when supply is disrupted, entire industries stall. Because when one country controls the chain, others are left exposed. And that is why nations everywhere are rushing to secure supply, to claim their own share of the world's critical minerals. Malaysia is one of the latest battlegrounds. Talks are reportedly underway with China. Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund could partner with a Chinese state-owned firm. The plan? A refinery to process both light and heavy rare earths. It would mark a policy departure for Beijing, which has banned the export of processing technology. China is reportedly ready to swap its know-how for access to Malaysia's untapped reserves. Malaysia holds an estimated 16.1 million tons of rare earth elements reserve. But the plan reportedly faces roadblocks. China has questioned whether Malaysia can supply enough raw material. Malaysia, in turn, is concerned about environmental impact and regulatory hurdles. Despite the obstacles, the scramble continues. Elsewhere, the United Kingdom is looking further north to Greenland. A minerals partnership is close to announcement. Prime Minister Keir Starmer could reportedly sign it in Copenhagen. Greenland's icy terrain holds 40 of the 50 minerals the United States calls critical: uranium, graphite, and rare earths. The European Union has already signed a partnership with Greenland in 2023. Now London wants its own foothold, but challenges remain. Extraction is expensive and environmental risks are high. Taken together, these two agreements highlight the global picture. Countries are scrambling to diversify supply. For one simple reason: China still dominates the rare earth industry. It mines most rare earths. It refines nearly 90% of the global supply. That dominance has become a tool of leverage. In April, Beijing introduced new export controls. European carmakers warned of shutdowns. Licenses eased briefly in July, but bottlenecks persist. That dependence explains the rush. Yet the economics reveal a paradox. The global rare earth elements market itself is small for now. It was just $3.5 billion in 2024, but prices swing sharply, and profit margins stay thin. That makes private investment difficult. So governments are stepping in to keep projects alive. The United States has pledged $400 million to rare earth miner MP Materials, and it is exploring advance purchase deals with Australia. Meanwhile, India is also scaling up its rare earth production and processing capacity. The aim is to build a resilient domestic supply chain and emerge as an alternative to Beijing. So the pattern is clear across continents. A new gold rush is underway, quieter than the old, driven by governments, not prospectors. And the prize is not jewelry. It is control of the rare earth magnets that power the modern world.
Protests have once again erupted in France. Unions across the country have called a nationwide strike. Teachers, students, and public sector workers are all on the streets. They are demanding more money for schools, hospitals, and pensions, and they want the government's planned budget cuts scrapped. It comes just 2 weeks after another protest gripped the country. This time, the anger is directed at the new Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, whose government is set to present a budget for 2026 in the coming days. Here's our report with more.
When France is unhappy, it takes to the streets. On Thursday, those streets were packed once again. French unions called a nationwide strike. Teachers walked out, students blocked gates, turning classrooms into barricades. Public sector workers marched with flags and banners. Megaphones echoed through the crowds. And in bold letters, placards demanded, "Raise salaries and enough is enough." This is France's latest wave of strikes. It is not the first time in recent months. 2 weeks ago, the same anger filled the streets. It was against the government's austerity measures. More than 500,000 people marched, according to the government. Unions said the actual number was over 1 million. Pharmacies shut, metro lines stalled, and schools were blocked by teenagers carrying banners. Placards called on President Emmanuel Macron to resign. That was the opening round. Now, the protests have returned for round 2.
We must continue the fight. even if there are clearly not many of us. We must continue. It costs us a day each time. But hey, that's how democracy normally advances.
But what exactly are they fighting for? The fight is over France's debt. Last year, the deficit hit 5.8% of the GDP. That is almost double the European Union's 3% ceiling. Former Prime Minister François Bayrou tried to solve it. He proposed 44 billion euros, or about $51 billion in cuts. But his plan failed in the parliament. And he was ousted in a confidence vote. Now the task falls to Sébastien Lecornu. He is a close ally of President Macron, but new to the role. He is still putting together his cabinet. Yet he already faces his first trial. Within days, he must present the 2026 budget. A budget that cuts the deficit and convinces the public the pain will be shared fairly.
We are here today because we are demanding greater social justice, more financial resources, and simply taking the money from where it is. People are fed up, and that is why we are here. We hope that it will bear fruit.
Those words echo the wider demands of France's unions. They want higher taxes on the wealthy. They argue profitable companies should share more with workers. They are calling for greater funding for hospitals, schools, and pensions. And demanding that pension reforms be scrapped.
The government needs to take action against companies that make extraordinary profits, engage in tax optimization, do not pay dividends to their employees, do not invest in industrial tools, and so on. It needs to pass laws and force them to redistribute profits to their employees.
Authorities say Thursday's marches are smaller than those in September. They expect between 300,000 and 350,000 people nationwide. In Paris, turnout is estimated between 20,000 and 40,000. To maintain order, 76,000 police officers have been deployed across France. 5,000 are in the capital alone. The numbers may be lower than the previous protest. But the pressure remains. For Lecornu, the stakes could not be higher. His budget will decide more than spending. It will decide whether Parliament accepts his leadership. It will decide whether protests continue to build. And it may also decide the fate of his government.
A habit, a necessity, or an addiction. Call it what you want. Truth is, we can't get enough of our phones. But study after study shows that they are bad for us, for our sleep, our attention spans, our health, and even our privacy. Which is why some people are trying to disconnect from their smartphones by using dumb phones. These are basic handsets or feature phones. They have very limited functionality, and now they are getting slightly smarter to meet their rising demand. Our next report tells you how.
Using social networking sites, taking an addictive substance. Do you know what's common between the two? They both light up the same part of the brain, according to researchers at Harvard University. Simply put, social media and smartphones are useful, but they can quickly become an obsession. And study after study shows why this is bad for us. It negatively impacts our sleep, mental performance, and mental health. Even when we are not using them, if we are in the same room as our smartphones, it still affects our brains. But for some people, when life gives them a smartphone addiction, they simply say, "Hold my dumb phone." In order to disconnect from their smartphones, over the past few years, many have been turning to what's being called dumb phones. Think of them as the pre-smartphone. These are basic handsets, often called feature phones or brick phones, and they come with limited functionality. They can make and receive calls, send text messages, and if you are lucky, take pictures. At least that has been the case until now. But given the social media trends like #BringBackFlipPhones and the protest movement like smartphone-free childhood, dumb phones have become all the hype. Last year, around 15% of handsets sold globally were feature phones. That's nearly 210 million devices, valued at more than $3 billion. So now the market is bubbling. Investment in dumb phones is rising. Companies are scrambling to meet the rising demand. And ironically, they are making dumb phones a bit smarter. Take the Swiss company Palki, for instance. It designs minimalistic feature phones, capable of calls and texts with a calendar, an alarm, and the ability to pair with smartphones to share files. If this sounds too basic, there is still light at the end of the tunnel. This firm makes sleek feature phones that come with fingerprint ID and 5G connectivity. It also uses grayscale, which according to research reduces screen time. But just because a phone is dumb doesn't mean that it is cheap. After all, these phones are built on a smaller scale, unlike Apple or Samsung. So dumb phone customers end up paying a premium, anywhere between $300 to $700. But now, some niche players are entering the market. They are trying to offer the same features at a lower cost, like Finland's HMD Global. It took over Nokia in 2016 and started reviving the classic brick models. Then, it started feeding into trends. Like in 2024, when HMD launched the Barbie-branded phone after the Barbie movie's craze. So companies are cleverly jumping on the dumb phone trend. The switch may not be for all users. After all, we depend on our phones for the simplest of tasks. But having the world at our fingertips comes at a cost. It is called the attention economy, where every free app, every social media platform, every browser takes our time and attention, mines our data, and makes money off of it. So if it is feasible for you, a dumb phone downgrade could be the upgrade you need. After all, we may have bought our smartphones to feel smarter. Yet here we are, asking them to remind us to drink water. So maybe it's time to dial down the distractions and let a dumb phone ring in some peace of mind.
And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. In Brazil, Christ the Redeemer glows pink for breast cancer awareness. Venezuela kicks off the holiday season amid tensions with the US. And in Belgium, activists on kayaks block ships over energy ties with Russia. And finally, taking you back in history, on this day in 2018, Saudi dissident Jamal Khashoggi was killed and dismembered in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. At the time, he was a columnist for the Washington Post. CCTV cameras captured him entering the consulate, but not leaving. US intelligence concluded that his murder was ordered by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The incident led to MBS being isolated in the West. Leaving you on that note, thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow. Bye.